weeks or a month earlier than at any other part of the coast and continued in the fall of the year until Christmas. Many industrious fishermen within 100 miles eastward do not leave these grounds until the end of December. The cod caught in October, November, and December is called winterfish. At Fortune Bay to the eastward, on the same coast, winterfish is caught by means of the smaller boats in the months of January, February, and March, in deep water close to the shores. The winter caught fish is of a better quality than that taken at any other season. It is allowed to remain in dry salt during the winter, and dried in the first warm weather, in spring, being then sent to a foreign market. It arrives at an early season of the year, when there is no other news. At the Dead Islands 3 families reside in summer, whose chief pursuit is the cod fishery. These islands are composed chiefly of mica slate. I was here fortunate in finding a very respectable industrious inhabitant, named Thomas Harvey, still OCCUP_ing his summer house at the shore, and his fishing boat or shallop not yet dismantled, for the winter. Although no ordinary remuneration was equivalent to the risk, at this inclement season, on so dangerous a coast, Harvey unhesitatingly manned and provisioned his boat to enable me to reach Fortune Bay. It would have been impossible, without the probability of an island, where reside 2 families who pursue the cod fishery. The weather being stormy, we were forced afterwards to put into the Seal Island some 166 American Treaty Coast, 15 miles to the eastward. Seal Island is a fine safe harbor, with 2 entrances, one east, another west. There is 1 resident family, only here seemingly in good circumstances, by means of the cod fishery. The prevailing rock here is mica slate. Dykesinder will % U2014 strong winds and snow had compelled us to remain all night at Seal Island. We now got under way, with a fair wind, cheerfully passing Bee Harbor Lapu, uninhabited Gria, with 1 resident family in summer, Indian Island, with 1 resident family, La Poile, a noble deep bay with 2 resident families, and reached Grand Brit, a good little harbor, with 2 entrances, the west being the better, and where reside 2 families in summer, whose habitations were now locked up and deserted. December TL1% U2014, set sail, and reached Singskrifagood Harbor. For vessels of any size, the best anchorage is on the east side. Within the harbor, there are many small inlets. It has no summer residents, nor could we discover any signs of winter occupants. Trap rock prevails here. December greater than th% U2014, having paused. Said the night at Sing Surf, we set off again with a fair wind, touch at and passed through amongst the Hergio Islands. Here is a sheltered roadstead, with good anchorage. At Burgio Islands there are 11 or 12, and in the vicinity, 5 or 6 resident families. Burgio Islands are formed of grey granite, and very barren. The part of the main island opposite to them, as well as that for some miles westward, presents steep and perpendicular cliffs of old red sandstone, to the sea. In the evening we reached the Ramio Islands, the east extremity of that portion of the Newfoundland coast at which the Americans have a right of fishing, and of curing fish. There are only 2 resident families here. The Americans have, by the Treaty of Ghent, a right of fishing and curing their fish, in common with British subjects, on the coast between Cape Ray and the Ramio Islands, an extent of about 75 miles. This portion of the coast, although possessing many fine harbors, besides those noticed here, contains scarcely 4 resident families, or 205 souls, on the whole of it. The chief pursuits of these people are the cod fishery in summer, and entrapping /s and other wild animals, for their skins in the fall. The salmon fishery is a very minor object, as the rivers are not so large nor numerous as on the west coast. The fishermen, or planters as they are called, obtain their outfits to enable them to carry on the fisheries from the merchants. At Fortune Bay the annual catch, about 3,000 cwts, or quintals or upwards of codfish, make about 4-5 tons of cod oil, and obtain fur to the value of 100 pounds. The approach to many of the fine harbors here is dangerous, from the want of surveys of the outer coast. Thousands of valuable lives have been lost by shipwreck, particularly to the eastward of Cape Ray, in sequence of most dangerous currents, and sunken rocks that exist here, being unnoticed upon any chart, and until the colonists themselves take up the cause of humanity, it is not likely these dangers will for a long time be made known, or a lighthouse erected on the coast. The residents here, as at St. George's Bay, and at most of the north and west harbors of the island, have both summer and winter houses. They retire to the residences, or huts in the woods on the setting in of the winter, for facility of firewood and shelter. The labor tending the conveyance of fuel to their summer residences at the shore, which are exposed to every inclemency of the weather, being very great. They sometimes remove to a distance of 30 miles and even farther to the sequestered woods at the heads of bays and harbors, and on the banks of rivers, taking with them their boats, furniture, and provisions, and reappear at the coast in the month of April. The habits and imperative performances of the beaver for preservation of self and kind are at least equally perfect with those of the European settlers or Indians on the coast. Each have their summer and winter abodes, and respectively provide for their retirement, seafowl and birds of passage resort to the southwest. Nation of Journey 167 coast in great numbers, in the fall of the year, and Shirani that season, as well as in winter, constitute a considerable portion of the provisions of the inhabitants. The dogs here are admirably trained, as retrievers in fowling, and are otherwise useful. The smooth or short-haired dog is preferred, because in frosty weather, the long-haired kind become encumbered with ice upon coming out of the water. They are fed on fish, per puzzle cured for them. The loop less than a common animal in all the adjacent countries, is not considered to be a native of Newfoundland, although one was caught last year in Lofoyle Bay, and another killed in the same neighborhood a few years ago. In these instances it is probable that the animals have either crossed or been blown over upon the ice from some of the neighboring countries. Neither squirrel, porcupine, or raton have been met with on the island. Penguins were once numerous at this coast, their breeding place having been the Penguin Islands, about 15 miles northeast from Ramio Islands. They have been extirpated by man, none having been seen for some years past. Halipots abound more at the southwest coast than elsewhere. The young, in the fall, is U2014. The coast was now everywhere clad in its white winter mantle, and most of the birds of passage had left the shores for a more genial climate. Having spent the night at the Ramio Island, we set sail eastward, entering now upon the British Newfoundland coast. This part may be considered out of the province of the present narrative, although except to the immediate residents, little better known than the coast just gone over. Bay is formed of trap rocks and red sandstone alternating. Passed by Little River, a good harbor. Cape Lahune, where 2 families reside. Bay Francois, with 3 resident families. New Harbor, 3 resident families. Rencontre, 4 families, and reach Richards Harbor, where several families reside. In summer, Cape Lahune, as well as the coast thence to Richards Harbor, is formed chiefly of trap rock. Richards Harbor is a complete basin surrounded on all sides by steep trap hills of 400 feet and upwards in height. The entrance is very narrow and deep, rocks on the west side, overhanging to that degree as to render it awful to behold while passing under. December I60/I% U2014, having been wind-bound one day, in Richards Harbor, a favoring breeze now carries us to the Bay of Despair, and in sight of the whaling and cod fishery establishment of Messrs. Newman, Hunt & Co. of London. The few inhabitants and their pursuits between Ramio and the Bay of Despair are similar to those farther to the westward. The rock formation of the coast between Cape Ray and the Bay of Despair may be noticed in a general view as follows. Red sandstone of the coal formation is found next to the trap rock, 6 or 8 miles east of Cape Ray. Then we come to found rock crystals of different colors are stato at the Bay of Despair. I learned with satisfaction that the last ship for FNGLAND this season from this coast was to sail within a few days from another of their establishments in Efratieba. _backslash boat and men now went back to the Dead Islands, but not without apprehension, on _part, for their Safet, contending against westerly winds on this inhospitable coast, at such a season. For while we were coming, with a fair wind, every drop of water and spray that came into our boat congealed, as it fell, thus binding together boat ropes and sails in one mass of ice. Here ended a 4 months' excursion of toil, pleasure, pain, and anxiety, succeeded by the delight of being again restored to society, which was enjoyed with the gentlemen and families of the mercantile establishments at the Bay of Despair and Fortune Bay. It was impossible to reach St. John's, and I took passage at Little Ba in Fortune, by the ship, duck sailing on the 28th December, and arrived in Dartmouth, in England, on the Loth February, 1823.